Hi and welcome to My Life. I'm John Ochins and I'm very pleased and proud to have Geno Mallia with us today. Geno is a longtime resident of Leonard, only about 60 years just about. He was a fireman there for 39 years. In fact, Geno's still on the Addison Township Fire Board. He's been on it for 16 years, and he's a local veteran. He was served in the Korean War in a MASH unit, and he's a member of the local VFW post as well as the American Legion. In fact, Geno was past commander of the VFW, and Geno is still in the honor guard for both the VFW and the American Legion. We always like to start out talking to you folks about what you're doing right this minute. And you're a very active veteran, we're pleased and proud to say. In fact, you've got a visit to the schools coming up pretty soon, don't you?
Pretty soon. We go in and talk to the children, and they're assigned to us, and we're assigned 2 children. And they ask us questions, and we respond to where we've been, what we've done in the service, and how we did it and stuff like that. And then they write us a letter back and send it to us. And some of the letters I get back are just amazing. You know, the children are so great and so involved and want to know all about the veterans and what they've done in their times. And it's just amazing what they can do.
It gives you a neat feeling that they're concerned, huh?
Oh, it does. It really does. It makes you feel really proud to be there and talking to them.
What's the most common question you get from kids?
Who were your best friends? What did you do? Did you ever shoot anybody? Stuff like that. And we tell them, you know, we don't know if we did anything like that or not, you know. Don't want to scare them. But they're truly involved in what we've done and where we've been.
You've got kind of a neat story, speaking of friends, about a friend of yours that you looked up after a long time, don't you?
Oh yeah, I didn't realize you knew about that. His name was Bill Ludwig. He got wounded over there in 1953.
And this is somebody you were serving with, is that correct?
I was serving. He was my best buddy.
Yeah.
And he got shipped back to the States. And I spent the rest of my time there. Well, when I got back, I seen him in the hospital in Schofield Barracks. Mm-hmm. And that was the last time I seen him. And one year, my wife and I were on vacation.
And what year was that you saw him last then?
Oh, it had to be 1954.
Yeah, okay.
And then in 1990, we were taking a road trip, the wife and I, and we went through Michigan City, Indiana. And the wife was sleeping. We were at a Holiday Inn, and she was sleeping, and I got up early, and I said, doggone it, old Bill Ludwig used to live in this area in Michigan City, Indiana. So I got the phone book out, and I looked up his number, and I dialed it up, and the lady answered the phone, and I says, is this the William Ludwig residence? She says, yes, it is. I says, is William Ludwig still living here? She says, yes, he is. I said, was he in Korea? She says, yes, he was. So I said, may I speak to him? She says, absolutely. So he got on the phone, and I'm not going to say what I said to him. And I said, Bill, you old son of a gun, how are you? Now, you got to realize I hadn't seen him in almost better than 50 years.
Sure.
And he said, Geno, you old son of a gun, he says.
You remembered each other's names.
Yeah. He said, where in the heck are you at? I says, I'm at the Holiday Inn in Michigan City, Indiana. He says, you stay right there. He says, I'll be right down. So he come down, and my goodness, we sat there for, well, it was 12:30 or 1 o'clock before we left there, and it was 9 o'clock when I called him. And the wife came down, and she had breakfast and everything, and we had lunch, but we talked for several hours there, you know, and I've kept in touch with him since, but he's still around, and so am I.
It's amazing the bonds you make when you're protecting each other's lives.
They're your best buddies.
Yeah.
They're your best buddies.
Yeah. Getting back to the veterans thing, what is the most unusual question that a kid ever asked you?
Well, were you scared? Were you scared when you were doing this? And I have to answer, I was petrified. Sometimes I was totally scared. But you had to remember your buddies were behind you. So you had reinforcements always behind you. So you always made sure that your buddy was taken care of.
Yeah.
And they would keep you going.
Yeah. So what else is coming up with regard to the veterans pretty soon? We're getting into the springtime here. Any special events you want to talk about?
We have a concert coming up. Mrs. Flynn does that.
Jan Flynn?
Jan Flynn. She does the big concert, and that's a great one. We've been involved with that for about 5 or 6 years or better.
And that's going to be over at the Oxford High School
Oxford High
Performing
School,
Arts
yes.
Center.
And then we have the Saturday before Memorial Day at the Lakeville Cemetery. There's going to be like the Army band there. There will be all the veterans there. And anyone interested in coming up, then we have a program all set up. The Oxford School Choir will be there singing with Mrs. Flynn.
Right.
The Army band will be there. We'll have taps played and we'll have a rifle salute. Then we have hamburgers and hot dogs, and it's all free. I mean, everybody...
That's the magic word.
That's the
free.
magic word, is free. Donations are accepted, but everything is free, and it starts at 11:30, and it winds up whenever we're done eating. But the program's probably 45 minutes long, and it's a wonderful time. Everybody gets there, and we have speakers, and like our township supervisor, Pearson, he'll be there, I'm sure. One time, Dr. Massamateo was our speaker, featured speaker. We have a lot of interesting things going on up there.
I can tell.
Yeah.
Well, we're anxious to take advantage of those things.
Yeah.
Thanks for telling us about them.
It's wonderful.
Let's take you back in time a little bit. You've lived in Leonard for right around 60 years.
60 years. 1955 when I got married. We lived in Detroit for about 4 or 5 months in an apartment. And my wife she was born in Leonard now, you got to remember that. Never been to the city much. And she seen her first cockroach.
Uh-oh.
And that was the end of Detroit for her.
Yeah.
We moved back to Leonard.
But let's take you back further than that. Where were your parents from?
My parents were from Licata, Sicily.
So they are first generation Americans.
I am first
Yeah.
generation. I was born in Sandusky, Ohio at 205 Camp Street. That's before the causeway in Sandusky going to Cedar Point. My father, Angelo, it was during the Depression, 1931 when I was born. He played on the old, I think it was called the Put-in-Bay or the Boblo boat, I can't remember which one, but he played the accordion on the Moonlight Cruises, and he played the music, and they'd throw quarters and nickels and dimes up there, and that's how he got us through the Depression.
I want to hear more about that. It's time we need to take a brief break right now, but don't go away. Come on back and we'll talk to Geno some more.
Hello, I'm Eugene Nichols, and I'm here to invite you to watch our weekly calendar of events on Charter 191 and AT&T Channel 99. learn what local events are going on. And if you have a special event that you want our viewing audience to know about, call us at our TV station at 248-628-9658, or you can locate our dates and times for our program broadcast by going to our website, occtv.org. See you there.
Back with Geno Mallia on My Life. Geno, you were just telling us about how your father played the accordion on the boat that went to Put-in Bay.
Yes.
My goodness. Tell us more. Did he earn his living that way, or was that just a side job?
That was a side job because at the time in Sandusky, things were real tight during the Depression. And to make some extra money, he played the accordion on the Boblo boat or the Put-in Bay boat, whichever one, I can't remember which one it was. And people would dance on the moonlight cruises back and forth from the park, you know.
Yeah, now you mentioned they were from Sicily?
Sicily, like
Did he learn the accordion over there?
Yes.
How old were they when they came over, do you know?
My grandfather came first, and then he sent for my dad and his sister. So he had to be around 18 years old or somewhere in there when they came over here.
So he had pretty much completed his schooling by the time he came over.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay, very good. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah.
Go ahead, continue. What was his main job?
He was what they called in a foundry, a core maker, making brass fittings. You make a core and you make it with sand, and you pour the molten metal into that. Mm-hmm. Then you break the mold, and then you got the part that you're looking for. And he was a core maker. That was a specific job at the time.
Now, you mentioned your grandfather came over before your father did. What did your grandfather do for a living?
He worked on the subways and stuff like that, digging the holes for the subways in New York.
Oh, so he started out in New York then?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then he went to Sandusky, Ohio.
What brought them to Michigan?
Well, when I was 1 year old when I came to Michigan, my dad found a job here at Cadillac Motor. And he found a job there, and we moved to Michigan. And we moved to a place just before Highland Park. It was called Englewood, 206 Englewood.
What year would this have been, roughly? Just roughly.
Let's see, I'd have to think about that. I was 1 year old when I came here, so it'd be 1932.
Okay.
Then we moved to Englewood, and we lived there for several years. And then from Englewood, we moved to, where was it? On Oakland and Caniff in Detroit.
In Detroit.
Yeah. My kid brother was born there. He was born on a dining room table. In those days, you had midwives. And Mrs. Weigel, who lived right next door, was the midwife, and he was born at home on Oakland Avenue.
Now, did your grandparents also come to Michigan at the same time?
Yes, they all came here, and we all lived like a cluster.
And once your grandfather got here, what did he do?
Nothing.
Oh, he was retired?
He didn't do much of anything except walk to Hamtramck and buy an old watch and repair it and sell it again.
Did they live near you in Detroit?
We all lived together.
Oh.
We all lived together. It was like a two-family flat, and we all lived at it.
So you got to know each other pretty well.
Oh, we were, all my life we've been together, never apart.
Now, did you grow up speaking Italian? Or?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. When I went to school, I went to Dwyer on Oakland and Caniff, a school called Dwyer. And they had to teach me how to speak English because all I spoke was Italian or Sicilian. And they taught me how to speak English. And
was that tough for you?
It was. We were called all kinds of things, but...
But I'm sure you weren't the only ones. I mean, you had people coming from all over the world having to deal with the same issue.
The thing that I just love about learning English is my folks all spoke Italian at home, okay? So when my oldest brother went into the service in 1941, he went overseas. And I don't know if you remember the V-mails or emails, not emails, they were victory mails.
Oh, okay.
And they were just a piece of paper, and they'd dark out everything that would be pertinent, so you wouldn't know where it was. And my aunt and my mom would tell me what to write in Italian, okay? And I'd have to translate it from Italian and put it down in English on paper. And then send it to Art. And then when he responded in English, I'd have to translate it from English and say it in Italian. And that's where I got most of my practice,
So you got to learn English and Italian pretty darn good then by
Yes,
the time you were
yeah.
done doing all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And I still speak it.
Where did you go to grade school at?
Grade school was Dwyer. And after Dwyer, that was on Oakland and Kniff.
Was that a pretty big school?
Yes, it was. There was quite a few students. Then we went to Hutchins Intermediate on Woodrow Wilson and Byron in Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
And from there I went to high school at Northern on Claremont and Woodward. And I graduated from Northern. And from Northern, that's when I went into service.
Mm-hmm. Now I'm going to guess, since you came from Sicily, you were probably Catholic.
Yes.
What church did you go to down in Detroit?
Oh, Blessed Sacrament.
To the cathedral?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And to Shrine of the Little Flower. My kid brother was baptized at the Shrine of the Little Flower.
Wow.
Father Coughlin. I don't know if you remember Father
I've heard the
Coughlin.
name, yeah.
Yeah. He was the guy that baptized my kid brother, or Bobby, my kid brother. He's 79 years old, but he's still my kid brother.
Tell me a little bit more about life in Detroit. How old were you when you moved away from Detroit proper?
Oh, I was about 24
So
years
you
old.
spent all of your
all
youth
of my youth in Detroit.
in
yes.
Detroit.
Yes.
Okay. When you were in grade school, what was your favorite thing to do?
I got to say,
Sure.
we used to get in a lot of fights.
Were you as serious? Did you take boxing lessons or
No,
anything?
no, just street fights. Just
Oh, I see.
street fights.
Okay. Did you get any trouble for doing that?
Oh yeah, yeah, lots of times. There was a police station right close by on Euclid called Bethune Station, and every once in a while we'd get taken into the Bethune Station. They'd call for our folks, and they'd come and get us, and then they'd whip the heck out of us. You're not supposed to do that. My dad would say, and in those days you could spank a kid pretty good, without getting in trouble.
Without getting in jail, yeah. In those days, if your teacher smacked you, you'd probably get smacked again when
Yes,
you got home.
exactly,
Right?
exactly.
Where'd you go to high school?
Northern
High School,
yeah,
okay.
on Claremont and Woodward.
So that was a pretty good sized school.
That was a
wasn't
good
it?
sized school, yeah.
Yeah.
And I had some very good friends there. I had one friend there. He was a black boy. Armstrong was his name. And I never forget Armstrong. When I went to that school, it was predominantly black.
Mm-hmm.
And there was quite a few white kids, but not as many, And Armstrong would always pick on me for some reason. And one day I said, that's the end of it, says, we'll fall out on the football field and we'll duke it out. Well, he hit me and I hit him, he hit me and I hit him. Finally he said, stop. And he said, put his arms around my shoulder, he says, okay, anybody, you people out there mess with him, you got to go through me. And from that time on, that's the 10th grade when I went there, Armstrong said, anything you need or want, you'd come tell me. And he was my best buddy all through high school.
Yeah. We're going to take a brief break right now, but we'll be right back, so don't go away.
Hi, I'm Ron Brock, host of Oxford History Today. Our program will air Monday through Friday at 8:30 and 1:30, Saturdays at 10 o'clock, and Sundays at 1 o'clock. Our program will be airing from our beautiful museum here. We'll be exploring the history of Oxford and the surrounding area, and please come watch our show.
Back with Geno Mallia on My Life. Geno, you were just talking about going to prom and with your black friend who was trying to set you up. Finish that story for us. Well, and remember, folks, this is back in the 1950s.
50s, yes.
Yeah.
And, well, Armstrong, who was my buddy, he...
After the fight, he was your buddy.
After the fight, he was my buddy, yes. He said, it came prom time, he says, "You're going to the prom." And I says, "No, I don't think I'm going to go." He says, "Yeah." He says, "You're going to go." I says, "I don't even have a date." He says, "I'll get you a date." Now I said, "Oh my goodness," you know, I don't know as I want to
Didn't know quite what to expect there, did you?
Right. And I said, "You know, I don't think so, Armstrong." I said, "I think I'll pass." He said, "No, you're going to go." And the prom was at the Roosevelt Hotel in Detroit. And he says, "I'll get you a date." And I says, "Oh my goodness," you know, I didn't know what to expect. Well, he came up with this young lady. She was a mulatto girl, the most beautiful thing I ever seen in my life. And I went to the prom with her and had a tremendous time. And she wound up marrying a buddy of mine named Mo Radin, and they moved to California because at that time in the 50s, integrated marriages weren't too looked upon favorably. And they moved to California and they married, and I haven't seen him since, but he married the first prom girl I ever went out with.
Well, that was
wonderful.
neat.
Yep.
What you know, what year did you graduate from high school?
1950.
1950.
June of 50.
So the Korean War was just getting started right around that time.
Right.
What kind of things, as a high school kid, thinking about his future, what kind of things were going through your mind?
Well, we were all, at that time it was the draft. We had no options, you know, you were drafted. And they had what they call a draft pool, or like a lottery.
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 Like they had in Vietnam.
Yes. And you were always anticipating you were going to go into service, you know, so you didn't want to get too involved in going to school or finding a good job, you know, because you were going to go away. You knew that. In 1951, I got my draft notice, and we went downtown to Detroit, and we all wound up in this big hall, and there were Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines, and we all sat down, and this guy come up and he says, "Okay, first 3 rows, you're Marines. The next 5 rows, you're Army. The next 2 rows, you're Navy, and whatever, you know, Air Force."
So you didn't have any choice in
You
the
didn't have
matter,
any
did you?
choices, no. You just went where they told you to go, unless you enlisted. Okay, if you enlisted, you could choose which branch of the service you wanted to go into. But as a draftee, you went where they told you to go.
How did your parents look on all this?
Well, they were devastated. They were scared. They didn't want us to go. But my family, my brother, Art, was in the Second War, so they'd been through this ordeal. And excuse me, my uncle, who was still in Sicily, and he was in the Italian army, and he was captured at Tunisia. And you know where the state fairgrounds is in Michigan?
Yes.
In Detroit, rather?
Yeah.
That was a POW camp. And my uncle, Charlie, was captured in Tunisia and sent to 8 Mile and Woodward
Yeah.
as a POW. Now, he was there for a while, and
Now this would have been back in World War
II.
II. Okay, so this would have been during the 40s.
Right. He came here in 1940, between 42 and 43. And he was a POW, and the FBI checked us out, our house out and everything. And then they told us he was a POW in Detroit. And we went and seen him. And of course, there was a big family reunion, you know, and all that.
What was, describe the experience. I mean, he was a POW.
Yes.
So what kind of place did you go to?
Well, it was the fairgrounds, and it was like barbed wire around it, you know, and barracks and stuff like that, and a big mess hall. But the unique thing is, once they knew that the FBI checked you out, he got what they call weekend passes.
A POW with a weekend
pass. And they had a uniform that said POW Italy, and he'd come to our house for the weekend. And my wife, my mom, he made a pair of shoes for her. He was what we call a scapato, shoemaker, and he made them a pair of shoes, and he did it all with glass. He shaved the leather and everything, and made them the most beautiful shoes you ever seen. But he'd come home on weekends and spend the weekend with us, and he'd go back to.
So did he ever invite you over to his place?
No, thank you. But he fixed all the shoes for the guys in the POW camps and stuff.
Wow. So how long was he a POW in this country?
Until 1945, 46.
Right around the end of the war.
And they sent them all home.
Yeah. That probably was kind of bittersweet for him to leave, huh?
Oh yeah, it was. It was. But he had a family back there in Sicily, and he wanted to go. And 1968, the wife and I went back to Sicily for the first time, and got together with my Uncle Charlie and my Aunt Mary and all them. And we spent, oh my goodness, 6 weeks over there with him. Had a wonderful time.
Wow, 6 weeks.
Yeah. And I've been back many times since, you know.
Oh, have you?
Oh yeah, my brother and I went there 1974. My wife and I went there with my kids in 1978. Went back for 6 months, and my brother was working for Ford's, and they sent him over there for the World Car. He was a clay model designer.
Mm-hmm.
And they sent him over there with a crew to work on the Focus, the Ford Focus.
Sure.
And he said, Geno, he says, come on over. He says, I got a villa, I got 2 cars, the food's all paid for, just come on over and
you just
live with
had
us.
you had to pay to get there and come home.
Yeah, and so we went for 6 months.
How did you find it over there? Did you like
I loved it.
Did you?
I loved it. I really did.
What did you like about it?
Well, the open air markets. Everybody in the evening, facciamo un passaggio. We'll take a walk and get a gelato, you know, and everybody's out in the courtyard or the main drag, and everybody knows everybody. Now, Licata's a small town. Okay.
Was that near the ocean or not?
Right on the ocean.
Oh, it was?
Yeah,
okay.
right on the ocean. Right on the Mediterranean. And so everybody knew you, you know, and they'd say, you know, this is my, how would I say it on TV? Questa è mio cugino. This is my cousin from America. And everybody wanted to meet you, you know, and all that.
Yeah.
And my wife. Oh, yeah, we had
I want to talk more about that, and I want to get into your Korean War experience,
Yeah.
but it's time to wrap up this episode of My Life. We've got another one coming up. We're going to spend some more time with Geno Mallia and find out some more about his experiences during the Korean War. So please join us then. Have a good day.
Hey Leonard, you're watching OCTV.